Your thoughts with Joe Flacco? Not on my bingo card that we'd be talking about Joe Flacco in Week 10, Scott, in the preseason as maybe a must-start type guy. 470 passing yards. This is the fourth most in Cincinnati Bengals history. The only Bengals quarterbacks with more passing yards in a game than Joe Flacco are Joe Burrow and Boomer Esiason.
He's been balling out, where the stat I had was he's averaging 313.5 passing yards per game. Joe Burrow's never done that.
It's the same story all over again. It's a perfect storm for fantasy because the defense is just so generous. T. Higgins is now averaging 19 points per game alongside in Joe Flacco games. Jamar Chase is going to challenge for the wide receiver 1 overall. Yeah, Flacco, it's awesome.
What?
Why are you shaking your head? You're welcome.
NFL trade deadline, fantasy football fallout. Theo Greminger and Scott Barrett, School of Scott Fantasy Football Podcast. Every week here on the Fantasy Points Podcast Network and Fantasy Points YouTube. Scott, we had a chance to tilt out together. We live streamed. Shout out to Brett Whitefield. The three of us did a live stream of the NFL trade deadline. We basically went right down to the needle for about 45 minutes, reacting to the trades. Anybody who wants to listen to that one, go to the Fantasy Football Daily podcast feed or on Fantasy Points YouTube. You can find it there in the live streams. Scott, the two big trades today. Let's start out with Jakobi Meyers. Unpack this one. Jakobi Meyers is now a Jacksonville Jaguar. A cascade effect. What does this do to the Raiders? What does this do to the Jaguars? What does this do to Jakobi Meyers, a player that you've spoken positively about for now multiple seasons of School of Scott?
Yeah, I think this is massive for Brock Bowers, who looks like a mega league winner for teams who just sort of treaded water until he made his fully healthy return. Jakobi Meyers, yeah, I think there's a chance he's the most valuable receiver on the Jaguars. And we just recorded and Brett disagreed with that. But I think this is an underrated offense to be invested in. Like Brett, myself, have had our criticisms of Trevor Lawrence as a quarterback, but with Liam Cohen in this fast-paced, pass-heavy offense, they rank top 4 in catchable targets per game, top 4 in catchable air yards per game. So clearly there is some upside and value here if you're a receiver on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Myers hasn't done much for a while, not since about week 3 or so, which is when these trade rumors popped up. And I wonder if part of this is just that, maybe he took notice of what Devontae Adams did last year, where he very obviously quiet quit his average separation score, week 1, very high. Then he demanded the trade, went into the negatives, and then he gets traded to the Jets. Very, very positive, top 10, top 15. But if you look at, week 3 and then count backward over his previous 11 games, 9.8 targets per game, just about 80 receiving yards per game. And I don't know what's going on with Brian Thomas Jr. Honestly, this is one of the most surprising, confusing things of the 2025 season. I was a lot lower than everyone else as BTJ, as a prospect. And then rookie season, I'm like, oh my God, this guy is incredible. I'm an idiot. Now Liam Cohen's there. He's talking all offseason about getting this guy double-digit targets per game, featuring him in the slot. He's going to break loose. And it's just awful. And I really don't know what it is, even if he's hurt, this wrist injury. I mean, he just picked up another injury last week that knocked him out of the game. I don't know what it is, but I do know vibes are awful. Certainly within Jacksonville circles as well. During the bye week, they're like, okay, it's the Travis Hunter show. Hunter's going to be your guy. He suffers an injury. And so you're going to have at least 3 weeks here with no Travis Hunter. I think that's a really good chance for Jakobi Meyers to show out as he is deserving to be the number one. But you have a bunch of moving parts here. You have Parker Washington, who was the slot last week. Brett thinks he's going to be the slot this week. That's the role we all covet. This Liam Cohen slot wide receiver role. Parker Washington ranks 16th in targets per route run. He's seen 9 or more targets in 3 of 4 games. He's cleared a 36% route share. And so, yeah, it's BTJ, Travis Hunter, Parker Washington, Jakobi Meyers. But I think right now, if I'm being honest with myself, I want to bet on Jakobi Meyers being the guy. Maybe that changes. Travis Hunter comes back in 4 weeks, but that's still 4 weeks from now. I'm bullish. In my article, I said, I don't know, I'm ranking him as like a low end wide receiver 3 this week. But if he really shows out these next couple of weeks, I would not be surprised if we're viewing him as a high end wide receiver 2 or better.
Yeah, I like the take, and I think I'm with you where I'm bullish on Jakobi Meyers in this situation. Jacksonville's tried to bring in wide receiver talent here. We saw it this offseason, the big move to get Travis Hunter in the top 5. I know there's the whole defensive back element, but it's wide receiver. They basically have used him a ton at wide receiver before he went down an injury. Then you've got the Diami Brown. They threw a big money at him, and now they go out and get Jakobi Meyers. So I think that this is a franchise that's valuing pass catchers. They understand it's very important. The price tag for Jakobi Meyers was not like prohibitive for going and getting him. And I'm with you. He's a professional pass catcher on a team where the vibes are not great with their quote unquote wide receiver 1 in BTJ. Also, the BTJ production was, you talked about this one, Scott, and I think this is a whole offseason conversation when sort of spotting the guys we shouldn't be drafting. BTJ, a lot of his production was backloaded. A lot of it was with Mac Jones, not Trevor Lawrence. Another thing with Jakobi Meyers that I think is interesting is look at the wide receivers who have succeeded with Trevor Lawrence, and we'll throw Evan Engram in this bucket. Christian Kirk, that 1 year, who was like wide receiver 12 in the counting stats, like a really poor wide receiver 1, but he was still got there. And then Evan Engram the following season, who was a tight end operating in the slot, was like a PPR merchant. And then Calvin Ridley sort of had that wide receiver 18-ish season with T-Law. Jakobi Meyers I could see sort of filling into a somewhat of a Christian Kirk type role. I understand it's a different offense, but it's sort of like reads that Trevor Lawrence can make, completions Trevor Lawrence can make. Jakobi Meyers can be used in that sort of a way. So I'm with you. I think it's Jakobi Meyers. This is a benefit. He gets away from Brock Bowers and goes on a team where nothing's really like too scary right now. Your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, let me talk a little bit about Trevor Lawrence. Like, they're same thing as Kyler Murray, who we should talk about at some point on this podcast.
I mean, we can interrupt it. Yeah, just bench for Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, where the coach says even if Kyler was healthy, this would have happened, and that's exactly what should have happened. This has been something I've been talking about for a really long time. There has been zero growth from rookie season Kyler Murray, rookie season Trevor Lawrence, to the Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence of today. Honestly, maybe even freshman college Trevor Lawrence to the Trevor Lawrence of today. And so I get a lot of heat for this. Jacksonville Jaguars fans, I think, are the most delusional fan base in all of football. They think I'm an idiot. They think he's elite. He's a top 5 quarterback. And if only his receivers, weren't dropping balls at the highest rate in the league, we would all know he's elite and think he's better than Josh Allen and Patrick. Absolutely ridiculous. What is going on is he throws hospital balls at the highest rate in the league. Those go down in the books as a drop, but really a lot of those drops are his fault. But really what it is he locks onto his first read. I see it. You see it. The defense sees it. We all see it. He just focuses in on his first read, throws the ball to his first read. They all know it's coming. They bat it down. Doug Peterson talked about this when it was very close to him getting fired, kind of threw Trevor Lawrence under the bus. But you had the new coach, Liam Cohen, talk about this in August. He was like, well, we need to get Trevor to be more comfortable moving away from his first read, whatever. But like, look at what's going on right now. Trevor Lawrence, best pass blocking offensive line in football by pressure rate. Yeah, lowest pressure rate in all of football. You get him a top 3 wide receiver in Travis Hunter, top 3 draft pick. You get him a round 1 draft pick in Brian Thomas Jr., who was awesome with Mac Jones, incredible with Mac Jones. And now you trade for Jakobi Meyers. And it's like, I think at a certain point, it's just, he's not that dude. He's just not that guy. And I think the Kyler Murray treatment is going to happen to Trevor Lawrence at some point. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense that Parker Washington and Bren Strange were his guys. Why? Because it's not that they're great route runners. They're getting separation. They're not. They're getting open. And why are they getting open? Because they're running the lowest average depth of routes where they're just immediately open. And Trevor Lawrence is a guy who locks onto his first read. Those are his first reads. That's why Parker Washington ranks 16th in targets per route run. He's just not it. But, like I said, like I feel the same way about Caleb Williams. You guys have heard me trash Caleb Williams. You've heard me trash Kyler Murray. But you have this elite play callers where, like I said, top 4 in catchable targets per game, top 4 in catchable air yards per game. There is value here for sure to being a Trevor Lawrence receiver, even if I am a hater more or less. And yeah, I would not be shocked if it's Jakobi Meyers returning high-end wide receiver 2 production, or we have to wait 3 weeks and then it's Travis Hunter doing that. But yeah, there's upside here despite poor quarterback play, which is what I say. Again, I had this tweet from, I don't know, a month ago, and I thought it was like a mediocre tweet, but Brett saw it and Brett was like, oh my God, this is an incredible tweet. And I'm like, all right, maybe it's a great tweet, where it's just like count backwards. It's like, how many quarterbacks have there been who have been great coming out of high school, all throughout college, first overall pick, and then great in the pros? There's basically none. It's basically Peyton Manning, who wasn't a first overall pick, maybe Andrew Luck, you could say. But yeah, I think it's important to be saddled with adversity. These guys like Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts, who are forced to transfer, as opposed to being a Trevor Lawrence, who's a god in high school, anointed the next coming of John Elway.
Deshaun Watson.
So that's where we get tricky. Deshaun Watson was awesome for fantasy early in his career, but I really think it was just like a broken era of NFL defenses. And then Vic Fangio came into the league and he was just fully exposed, like Russell Wilson was fully exposed. But freaking awful. Like literally, like there are 30 backup quarterbacks better than what we've seen from Cleveland era Deshaun Watson. But no, I think it's the Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio came in the league, changed defenses, really exposed Deshaun Watson, really exposed Russell Wilson, who are these kind of like deep shot, check down, and nothing else quarterbacks with a little bit of running. And yeah, so I wouldn't lump him in. If you want to lump him in, that's fine. But realistically, yeah, I think it's good to have to go through some adversity. And yeah, I think it's like a psychological thing where you're anointed the guy and you're like, oh, I'm the man. I don't have to get better. I don't have to improve. But I'm just a lowly fantasy nerd. So what do I know?
Yeah, I mean, first overall picks, you might be onto something here. Cam Ward, not so good so far. Bryce Young,
he has a horrible supporting cast.
This is true, and I'm not. I recorded
He's not Jaxson Dart levels of good. But
no, he's definitely not. Like, that's the thing. It's I just did a re-ranking of the rookie class with I had the guys from the FF Dynasty on Dynasty Life, and we're talking about Cam Ward, and I mean, Cam Ward certainly would go lower today in Dynasty rookie drafts than he did in August. Jaxson Dart would leapfrog him, but Bryce Young goes 101, was benched, has sort of rebounded a little bit here, but I think you're onto something with these first overall picks, the kind of the anointed ones. Very interesting take there. Let's talk about quickly Rashid Shaheed. This trade goes down. Seattle is 6-2. Seattle just blew the doors off the Washington Commanders and now adds Rashid Shaheed. Rashid Shaheed had a tremendous amount of success in a very short sample size with Clint Kubiak. He had like 4 weeks where he scored like 18 points or more out of 6 weeks played. Then, of course, went down for the season. Kubiak reunion with Shaheed is pretty exciting.
Yeah, well, he was clearly the wide receiver one in 2024, ahead of Chris Olave, much to everyone's contemptuous disdain. Week 1, 5 targets, 73 yards, a touchdown. Week 2, he had 96 yards and a touchdown. Week 3, 5 targets. Week 4, 11 targets, 83 yards. Week 5, 9 targets, 86 yards and a touchdown. Week 6, 7 targets, and he got hurt in that game. He only, he left that game early. By volume, by production, he was outproducing Chris Olave. And so I'll dive into what I think, but at first I want to hear what you think. Where do you value Rashid Shaheed in this offense?
I mean, I think it's a huge win for Shaheed. Devil's advocate, people are going to say like the pace of play in New Orleans was sort of supporting a huge PPR scam season by Chris Olave, and you've got your Rashid Shaheed, who's like 15th in targets overall. Not sure if he's going to get there, but the quality of the quarterback, we go from Tyler Shuck to Sam Darnold. We go for a team that's headed nowhere to a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, and I get the vibes of the reunion where Rashid Shaheed's been a guy that I know you've really liked a lot. I know Ryan Heath really liked a lot. Graham Barfield really liked a lot. Like, he's a fantasy points guy, but the best sample size of high quality play from him was under Kubiak. Now we have that. So I think this is great for Shaheed.
Right. So you rank him as a wide receiver X moving forward, sell for X.
I think you got to call him a somewhere on the wide receiver 3 line, and you could say he's a boom bust. I'm sure our friend Sigmund Bloom would have a nicer way of putting it. I'll say boom bust. I'll say like a high ceiling, maybe low floor wide receiver 3, where I think that's going to be it. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is one where they've sort of chopped up the number 2 targets. Like, we had a little stretch where AJ Barner's done something. We saw Torrey Horton last week. Cooper Kupp, of course, when he's out there, has been sort of middling. We saw Elijah Arroyo flash at times, but I think this team is screaming for a true number 2 target. Scott, this could potentially change the offense slightly, and maybe Rashid Shaheed is a high-end wide receiver 3 for the rest of the season that gives you some wide receiver 1 weeks. We could look at what Torrey Horton was able to do last week, and we'd say, like, Torrey Horton does some things where we could look at Torrey Horton and say, maybe this guy could become the next Rashid Shaheed. We've got the Rashid Shaheed right now in his prime taking on that role. We just saw that role catch 2 touchdown passes. I'm bullish on this one. I think I'm going to be bullish than most on Rashid Shaheed.
Yeah, so you're saying somewhere wide receiver 3, let's say mid-range wide receiver 3. I feel like I have to come in higher because, one, this is one of my guys. I've been a Rashid Shaheed guy since his rookie season, UDFA, no one's radar. But he just like had this crazy special teams touchdown, a few like 80+ yard touchdown. Like, very few people move like this. This is rare speed. Let me add him to all of my dynasty leagues. So I've had him on all my dynasty leagues for forever. Coming into last year, coming into this year, Ryan Heath and I have both continually used the same stat where it's in games, Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed both played over 50% of the team snaps. Olave's at a 2.10 yards per route run. Shaheed is at 2.08 yards per route run. So very little separating them, and anything over 2.0 is elite. So this is a player I've always been convicted in. I've been saying I think he's a more talented Xavier Worthy. I think he's who, you know, Kansas City hoped they were getting when they drafted Xavier Worthy. I know that sounds crazy, but a lot of film guys, Max Toscano, Brett Whitefield, agree with me on that take. And then it's not just the player who I'm convicted in, but it's also the offense. This is something Zane Dahani, Ryan Heath, a lot of fantasy points analysts have been talking about. This looks like one of the best spots for a receiver to be on the field. If you're not a super dusty washed Cooper Kupp, this is the bonanza offense to be because you're running a ton of horizontal routes. It's a ton of condensed looks, a ton of 2 or fewer wide receiver sets. What does that mean? Is the fewer wide receivers are on the field, the higher your expected targets per route run. Why? Because your target competition is lower. And so you're seeing right now Jackson Smith and Jigba wrecking leagues, destroying worlds, has like a nearly 50% yardage market share. Last time I looked it up, it was the second most since the Beach Boys released their debut album. And so there's clearly room for another wide receiver to step up. And so I feel like because it's my guy, this is the offense I've been talking about. I feel like I have to be higher than you. The one caveat here, and I said this on our last show, and I feel like, trying to sell the Everything Report as, a must read weekly. I have to say, I said this to you before, I'll say it again. I felt like this is my worst Everything Report. There was just the data suite went down because our cloud provider or whatever was glitching out. And there was just a lot going on with injuries. And then of course the trade deadline. And so I don't know that I had the best read on things. But yeah, the more I think about this, the more, we'll see. That's what I was trying to get at. Sorry. Is I want to see the route share this week. I want to see the snap share this week. If Rashid Shaheed is a full-time player, wheels up, game over, this is a player you need on your teams. If Cooper Kupp remains in a very, full-time role, which I don't know if you've heard the way announcers in Seattle talks about him. They talk about him like he's the Trent Williams of wide receivers, where it doesn't matter that he's not getting open. He's just an amazing blocker. He needs to have a 90% snap share, which is just sucks for fantasy. But yeah, so hopefully Shaheed now is the number 2. And it's guys, come on. Cooper Kupp is dust. But yeah, a lot of it comes down to this snap share, route share that I'm going to need to see this week. And so, like I said, maybe not the best Everything Report this week, but it's just a function of kind of the game. And I really just need to see what happens this week.
If you want access to the Everything Report that Scott was just bashing his own Everything Report, he's self-deprecating on this. Your Everything Report is still fire. You and Ryan drop a great article every single week, and it is appointment reading. All of our packages are discounted right now at Fantasy Points, significantly discounted, and you could get an additional 15% off using the code Theo. Not a whole lot of real estate left in the fantasy football season. If you're looking to make a fantasy push, you're going to get access to all of our rankings, all of our waiver wire content, our dynasty content, our DFS content. A tremendous resource for anyone in fantasy. Use the code Theo. Scott, we talked about the trades. Let's talk about, give me a big-time loser from today, somebody who you were hoping to walk away and see something happening either with their team or with the player.
Biggest loser. Well, I have to think about the Giants, my Giants, Jaxson Dart, who looks incredible. I would have loved if they were the ones to get Rashid Shaheed, one of my all-time guys. Come on, just get one of my guys, or even A.D. Mitchell. When you're trotting out Wan'Dale Robinson as your wide receiver 1, why not? But it's also, it's a lot of these off. Breece Hall's a major loser. Apparently the Chiefs offered a round 4, but weren't willing to give up a round 3. And the Jets said, sorry, we're only taking a round 3. I mean, if that's true, then the Chiefs are the way bigger loser than the Jets. That was just so stupid. But yeah, Breece Hall's a loser there too. Like he just went from, I don't know how you're valuing him, Theo, but it's like mid-range RB2. If he's on the Chiefs, it's like fringe top 7 running back. Bills, I would have liked to seen add a receiver. I don't know who am I forgetting here, Theo?
No, I mean there's a bunch of them. You could say that all 3 blackjack splits that dynasty managers I know oftentimes roster both of these players, but all 3 blackjack splits failed. The Tyjae Spears Tony Pollard combination, where you even had shout out to our guy Andrew Cooper. He was posting about this on X. Some mysterious person went on like fantasy Reddit and claimed that Tony Pollard was a Patriot, and all these people ran with it. Like a person who had, I guess, a decent credibility in the Reddit circles said that they had a tip. This is it. Pollard's a Patriot, and that turned out to be false. So the Pollard Spears breakup, which could have resulted in one of them getting like all of the touches on a bad offense, that ship sailed. The David Njoku Harold Fannin split, that sort of would have made a little sense if you're Cleveland, and then you would have had David Njoku potentially getting a bunch of targets someplace, and then Fannin wheels up. But yeah, it's the blackjack split in New York that probably hurts the most, because I have a ton of Isaiah Davis, a ton of Breece Hall. That could have turned into like a top 8, top 6 running back scorer with one guy, and the other guy could have been like running back 20 for the rest of the year. So that's the one. And Brett Veach, shout out to Brett Veach, the GM for Kansas City. Grow some balls. Trade the 3rd for Breece Hall. You're going in there with Kareem Hunt and Brashard Smith right now, and a banged up Isaiah Pacheco.
Bro, look at who the Chiefs have drafted in the 3rd round over the last 7 years. No, guys who are playing 0 snaps. Like what the heck are you? And you're trying out Kareem Hunt, who just like it's like a 3 to 5 yards every single run, where it's like 70% odds of 3 yards, 20% odds of 4 yards, 10% odds of 5 yards. Like this, what are we doing here?
Yeah, and the Chiefs had an opportunity to use their 3rd round pick this year on Cam Skattebo, where they had I believe they had the late 2nd, early 3rd, or 2/3, something. They had multiple opportunities to add Skattebo.
If I were GM of the Chiefs, I don't think they would have lost a game since 2021.
There you go. They'd even have a couple of Super Bowl rings with Scott Barrett running the show there. So yeah, I'm with you there. I think that you nailed it with a couple of them. How about a really big winner from the trade deadline? Who's like your biggest winner? You're circling in ink, saying that this player, the trajectory is headed upwards.
It's got to be your guy.
It's got to be. It's got to be your guy Darnold. I'll segue you.
Yeah, duh. Yeah. No, absolutely right. So this is something I kind of wanted to talk about. I thought this is one of the most interesting topics of the week, where you had Greg Olsen really like lighting the flame under this as a hot topic. And then I quote tweeted that. He retweeted me. Mina Kimes talked about this. A bunch of big notable people have talked about this. It's what is going on with the Seattle Seahawks offense is basically they're running out of heavy personnel, and defenses are matching with base personnel, because like that's what you typically do when a team isn't heavy. You expect the run, you play the run, you play base defense. But Seattle kind of mixed it up, where they're just like, hey, we're going to come out of heavy personnel, but we're going to pass out of it. And they have been insanely successful doing this. Sam Darnold, out of heavy personnel against base defense, according to Fantasy Points data, is averaging 14.5 yards per pass attempt, or 14.4, which would be 45% better than the best quarterback season ever, which would be a Kurt Warner season. But like when they run the ball, it's just 4.8. It's 8.3 yards per play against nickel defense. It's 6.4 yards per play. So I tweeted this out. I'm like what is Greg Olsen saying here? Like, I get it. I'm looking at the numbers. It's like, are defenses really just really stupid? and just playing the run when he should be playing the pass. And he retweeted it. Max Toscano went on a rant about it. Mina Kimes talked about, all these people talk. Yeah, apparently they're just being stupid, and they should be playing the pass against Seattle's heavy personnel. And so I thought this was really interesting. The ad now it's like the ad Rashid Shaheed, where it's like, this was the hot topic on Twitter this week. And hey, Twitter is a bigger deal than you want to make it out to be. Twitter like topples governments in the, I don't know, Middle East or the Balkans or whatever. And so maybe these see that this is the hot topic on Twitter. Like, oh, defenses now are going to play the pass against us. What they're going to play too high coverage. What do we do? Oh, let's get Rashid Shaheed to stretch the field. And yeah, so this is, you have Sam Darnold, who is, so like, this is why I went all in on Brock Purdy MVP bets. What was it, 2 years ago? And we could have cashed out big. We could have hedged with Lamar. A lot of our subscribers did. Is that the MVP bet has basically become like, okay, who ranks top 3 in EPA per pass on a really good offense, right? And so if you look at Sam Darnold, it's okay, he leads the league in EPA per pass. This is a really good offense. This is a really good team. He leads in adjusted net yards per attempt, catchable target rate, accurate throw rate, all these stats you want to reference. He's leading in just about all of it. And now he adds yet another really potent receiver to the mix, whilst JSN had like the second highest yardage share in 50 years. So yeah, obviously clear winner. I'm still like not that excited about him for fantasy. Last week, he had 4 passing touchdowns in the first half without a single interception, but he doesn't run. They're content to take their foot off the gas with a lead. He's like a low-end QB1 for me, higher in good streaming spots. But no doubt he was a free agency winner.
Yeah, and I think the longevity of Sam Darnold, if you're looking at it from a dynasty lens, like was looked at as maybe a short-term guy in Seattle. Now it's going to be somewhere where he could be the Seattle starting quarterback for multiple seasons. Certainly he's going to be the starting quarterback next year. So yeah, I'm with you. And I think, yeah, top 15 quarterback rest of season. The lack of rushing upside, I will say their defense is pretty good. We haven't seen too many like shootout environments for them. This Washington game, this could have been the week for him to put up like a truly remarkably high scoring game, but Washington just couldn't keep up in the second half. A lot of that was front loaded production for Darnold. So yeah, I'm with you. I think Darnold is really set for a big season. We got to check in non-trade talk. Let's talk about hey, Scott, another free agent running back. Year of the free agent running back was supposed to only be last year, but Rico Dowdle looks like a league winner right now. Rico Dowdle, we've talked about him for multiple weeks, but now it's just getting serious. Completely dominates Carolina's touches. Carolina gets the biggest win of the Dave Canales era against Green Bay this past week. Played great defense and a ton of Dowdle. Dowdle had 27 touches to Chuba Hubbard's 5. It's the Rico Dowdle show, and I've said that he's this season's version of 2024 Josh Jacobs. Second half of the year, Dowdle is second half of the year Jacobs. I think that got you hyped. I don't know if you're completely on the train, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously exciting. I would have compared it to 2023 Rashad White, 2023 Kyron Williams, 2 players we were very in on. 2024 Chuba Hubbard, a player we were not in on. We were on Jonathan Brooks, but I did say if you're going to draft Jonathan Brooks, you should draft Chuba Hubbard. But it's just like, that's what I mean. It's like one of those RB2s who wins the job on talent because he's a priori the more talented back. And it's a very valuable role. I could not be any more bullish here. You know, just because every FFPC live draft we did, I was singing Rico Dowdle's favor. singing his praises. Why? Because I think he's an underrated talent. I think Chuba Hubbard was an overrated talent, and I thought this was an extremely valuable role. This was arguably one of the most valuable roles in all of fantasy. Like one of my best picks ever was James Conner that year Le'Veon Bell held out. Le'Veon Bell was a first round pick the whole time. James Conner was an afterthought. I'm like, guys, like Le'Veon Bell is holding out, and we know Mike Tomlin RB1 is like the best, most valuable, thing you could have on your roster. And that's kind of what I think is happening here, and what has happened. It's not just that this role is valuable, but it's also Dowdle is way more talented than we were giving him credit for. Right now, he ranks third in yards per carry, third in rushing yards, behind only James Cook or Jonathan Taylor in either stat. And yeah, the role of this offense is super valuable. The stat I kept parroting all offseason is like, from 2023 to 2024, there were only 10 running backs to clear a 75% snap share. Only 9 running backs to clear 16 plus carries, 3.5 plus targets per game. And 2 of those 9 were Dave Canales running backs. And that's what we have right now. We have Carolina's backfield leading the league in carries, despite ranking bottom 6 in a percentage of plays where you're trailing. You have only the 49ers backfield ranking ahead of the Panthers in XFP. And then you have this Rico Dowdle extreme hyper efficiency. I wrote a bunch of words in the everything report. It was a little self-aggrandizing, apologies. It was a little bit of a victory lap, and a little bit of a rehash of things we talked about since the offseason. But the conclusion, the TLDR, was I think this is, I hope I'm not double counting, triple counting here, but I think this is a fringe top 7 fantasy running back moving forward. And I think once you factor in the opportunity cost to acquire, this is going to be one of the top 3, top 5 most valuable, most important players in fantasy football in the year 2025, where you look at win rate, you look at percentage of teams this player is on a championship winning roster. You talk about power law players. I think Rico Dowdle is one of them.
Yeah, and the Dave Canales offense continues to produce big-time running back ADP wins. He's on a mega heater here. Rachaad White, 2023. Chuba Hubbard, 2024. Rico Dowdle, 2025. And Rico Dowdle might be better on a point-per-game basis than either one of those guys was, which is really a scary thought. Yeah. He's interesting, too, from like a dynasty lens, because he's 27. There's a chance that Rico Dowdle ends up being the Carolina Panthers running back again next year. So
yeah,
he's an interesting one. Here, Scott, are you willing to trade one of your Cam Scattaboo on the IR shares to get yourself a Rico Dowdle if you are a dynasty contender? That's a conversation I've had with a number of people.
Yeah, I know it sounds like a cop-out, but it really is. The answer is it just depends on how win now you are. Is how I would treat it. But yeah, like the bottom line is like, so many of our subscribers have, like I do, Cam Scattaboo on 100% of their teams. We got lucky, guys. Like Rico Dowdle arrived at the perfect possible time. I don't know if you were following the coach speak here, Theo, but the coach speak was like, yeah, no, I know Rico Dowdle just had 200 plus yards from scrimmage in back-to-back games, but we still really love Chuba Hubbard. And then, a few days ago, it was really Dave Canales reading Chuba Hubbard his eulogy. It was, he was like a mascot of the offense. He's, amazing in the locker room, but you can't deny how efficient Rico Dowdle. And like that's kind of the thing that plays into, the minds of coaches as they're divvying up these touches. But yeah, no, from now on, it's Rico Dowdle, like I said, top 3 in yards per carry. Chuba Hubbard, bottom 10. It's the Dowdle, he looks awesome. He's getting the volume and he's succeeding with it. I think it's game over. I think fringe top 7 top 5 wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, I mean, there's been these quotes coming out from like the defense loves watching Rico Dowdle. Like the Carolina Panthers defense is like inspired from getting a chance to watch Rico Dowdle. It's like an inspiring style of play. He's like a real bell cow in this role. I think it's interesting too. I think these coaches that make these big, bold switches, rewarding guys who are producing, I think that helps win a locker room. Arizona doing it with Jakobi Brissett coming off the win against Dallas. Carolina doing it with Rico Dowdle. It's just awesome stuff. Are you ready to acquiesce on your take you had on X maybe about a month ago where you're sort of like just saying, you know, there's no way I'm ever going to take an early tight end again. Late round tight end, that's the way to go, fellas. Like, look at all these suckers who took these guys. 'Cause I got news for you. Brock Bowers is going to be a first-round pick in FFPC, might be the 101 next year. Brock Bowers is going to be a first-round pick in Underdog, in Best Ball Mania, in half-point PPR, and Brock Bowers is going to be a first-round pick in NFFC, any regular PPR league. Brock Bowers is insane. One of the highest-scoring tight end weeks ever. Ridiculous. And coming out of the bye week, everything you wanted to see from Brock Bowers was there. 3 touchdown grabs. I mean, talk about just how good he's going to be rest of the year. Yeah.
So no player I struggled with more this offseason than Brock Bowers. Jacob Sanderson, I think, had the best rant, the best pro Bowers argument, where he was basically saying, like, why are we valuing Bowers any differently than we would, you know, sophomore year Amon-Ra St. Brown? It was one of my like all-time best calls where I was all in on him that year. He was, you know, price was way too low. It's like literally like, just why do you think he's a tight end? Just like view him as like an elite slot wide receiver, which is what he is. But he also gets this tight end designation for fantasy where points matter more. And I was like, yes, I think that's right. But also I've had so much success, you know, drafting late round tight ends, just like I've had so much success drafting late round quarterbacks. And so that was the eternal struggle. Right. And so like, if I want to be critical of Brock Bowers, I would say he's really only had one good game. I mean, he had 100 yards in 3 quarters week 1. There was that. And he went nuclear last week. It feels a little reactionary, but it also like not at all surprising to me. I just think he's that good. I think he's that much of a freak, but it doesn't change the fact that 3 weeks ago I put that tweet out. And when I put that tweet out, it was Tucker Kraft, drafted in the double-digit rounds, was the #1 tight end by fantasy points per game. He got hurt. That's unfortunate. You can't control for that. Jake Ferguson was the tight end 2 by fantasy points per game, drafted in the double-digit rounds. A tight end I was all over. You had Oronde Gadsden, who last 3-4 games is top 7 among wide receivers in yards per game, averaging nearly 19.9 fantasy points per game, something. So you have all these late round tight ends smashing. And that's always been the thing with tight ends, where it's like, there have been years where, okay, drafting George Kittle round 2 worked out, but Travis Kelce round 2, but he had to be Travis Kelce, and he had to have one of his best ever seasons, one of the best ever seasons for a tight end, period. And then even then there might have been a late round tight end who returned an equivalent win rate. And it's like, do I trust myself? Because like there's an opportunity cost to drafting a tight end in round 2. Brock Bowers might have only gone a pick after Jonathan Taylor in one of your leagues. In that case, go ahead.
It's a good point. It's a very good point. But I think when you also factor in Brock Bowers' age, I think that all like, you know, you bring up Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce wasn't doing this at, what is Brock Bowers now? 22, 23 years old. I think that Jacob had a really good take with the Amon-Ra St. Brown. How about Brock Bowers is not very dissimilar to Puka Nacua. It's just a different offensive situation. But I also think that this is Brock Bowers finally looks fully healthy. the explosiveness that he displayed this past week against Jacksonville, I think that was really, really telling.
I mean, we've been talking about this for weeks, Theo. You and I on this podcast have been saying Brock Bowers is the most obvious buy low candidate of all time. It was clear, Coach Speak Index is calling him Brace Bowers. Like, yeah, he has a knee brace on. He looks totally hobbled. This isn't the same player. But I mean, I feel like we're coming at it from two different angles where you're very much a dynasty guy. In dynasty, I think maybe not Jamar Chase, but I think Justin Jefferson versus Brock Bowers is like a conversation in dynasty. But in redraft, where you have these like double-digit round tight ends blowing up and finishing top 5 every single year, I think it's more of a conversation where it's just opportunity cost. But no, in a dynasty league, like I would pay especially a tight end premium dynasty league, I would pay ungodly amounts for Brock Bowers.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's a very interesting one. I'm sure it's one that the two of us and Ryan Heath, a noted early tight end hater. I don't know if he's going to capitulate this offseason.
But he's already capitulated. He was writing something on this, and I told him not to capitulate too hard, but he was already very down to fully capitulate.
Yeah, I can't wait till we do, and we'll probably do some early 2026 rankings, like way too early rankings. Maybe do that on School of Scott with Ryan. That'll be really fun. Look for that towards the end of the season. We've been talking about doing that for a while. I think we could do sort of our 2026 mock draft. If you're watching this on YouTube and you want to see it, or if you have any other show ideas that you want Scott and I to do, something interesting this time of year, we are open-minded to it. We're here for the audience. Scott, you mentioned Tucker Kraft. I think that's a good professional segue. How is this Green Bay offense going to look like without Kraft? You've talked about just how efficient Kraft is with his yak, with how he's sort of the next George Kittle, where it's not a massive target earner, but it's just this incredibly efficient player. Is this a downgrade the whole offense? Or is this, I trust LaFleur. LaFleur is going to figure it out. This player and this player are going to step up in Kraft's absence, and they're still going to be able to score relatively the similar numbers.
Boy, did I jinx Tucker Kraft?
Yeah,
or
you
what?
killed him. You killed him.
I know. I said he's George Kittle 2.0, and of course he comes down with a brutal injury. I want to give credit to Max Toscano, who I really think is like one of my favorite follows and someone I talk to consistently, who's an elite ball knower. He has a Substack, Remember the Tight Ends, where he like really focuses in on the tight end position. But heading into the year, he had Tucker Kraft as a top 5, top 6 tight end just based on talent. He really identified this as the breakout year for Tucker Kraft. He also really identified the trend of like how the overall league, like where the overall league is going from this spread defense where you just like pass on them and you don't defend the run at all, to like offenses marrying the run with the pass and that being the new meta. He was like 2 or 3 years early on that. And then even this, he like 3 weeks ago was just like shot a tweet out and he was like, if Tucker Kraft were to suffer an injury, I think the Packers would be in really big trouble, and like the offense wouldn't be able to do like the whole offense. Like he's one of the most underrated players in all of football, which is what I've always said about George Kittle. And then what happened? They lost to the Panthers after he suffered this. So yeah, I think that's right. I hate that I cursed him. I really thought he was on the verge of a mega breakout year. But yeah, I think this Packers offense takes a big step back. I think it's the run and the pass game. I think you see lesser efficiency from Josh Jacobs and lesser efficiency from Jordan Love. The one potential silver lining here could be, LaFleur always goes with this like gross 4-way, 5-way wide receiver rotation. Maybe that condenses without Kraft. And maybe Luke Musgrave is like a decent waiver ad. But yeah, I think things are going to get pretty gross from here.
I wrote up Luke Musgrave, and I got to, shout out to the NFL trade deadline. What poor luck for me with the waiver wire article. Anybody who uses the waiver wire article for FFPC, NFFC, there'll be an update Wednesday morning. But I had like Torrey Horton, Parker Washington, like as like towards the very top. I had Musgrave in there. I'm not like overly bullish on Luke Musgrave. I think he's interesting. Tight end premium, he's a must add, but he's a downgrade from Kraft. I think I'm getting back to last week. I think I'm a little bullish on Christian Watson. This will be now week 3. They play Philly this week. This is a big test for them. Philly's going to come out of their bye week, put pressure on Green Bay. I think Dubs and Watson are going to have opportunities here. My bet would be on Watson. We'll see, though. Let's talk about a team that's heading to the bye week. Your thoughts with Joe Flacco. Not on my bingo card that we'd be talking about Joe Flacco in week 10, Scott, in the preseason as maybe a must-start type guy. 470 passing yards. This is the 4th most in Cincinnati Bengals history. The only Bengals quarterbacks with more passing yards in a game than Joe Flacco are Joe Burrow and Boomer Esiason. Carson Palmer, Andy Dalton. None of these guys put up this type of a big game that we saw from Flacco. Is he like a player you're looking to find reasons to start?
Yeah, man. I'm way more bullish than I thought I would be. The dude last week was playing with an AC joint sprain to his throwing shoulder. That was a big question Johnny raised to me in our Sunday DFS stream, where he was like, if it weren't for this shoulder injury, I would be all in on Joe Flacco doubles this week. That's what he said to me. And if he played that, he would have won all the money in the world. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to play a guy who I think is hurt. And he's like, well, who was the last quarterback to deal with this injury? And I was like, it was Baker Mayfield his last year with the Browns, where he was awful. And you had OBJ's like dad tweeting out like videos and whatnot. And he was like, yeah, you're right. I'm not going to play Joe Flacco this week. Apologies, Johnny. But yeah, he balled out and he's been balling out. Where the stat I had was he's averaging 313.5 passing yards per game. Joe Burrow's never done that. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are combining for 22.6 targets and 195 yards per game. And so like, even if you want to like critique this with, yeah, well, he's had like a really soft strength of schedule, which he has. Look at his remaining strength of schedule. It's great. He faces the Steelers, the Patriots, the Ravens, the Bills, and the Ravens. All of those teams, except for the Bills, rank bottom 7 in schedule adjusted passing, fantasy points per game allowed to quarterbacks. Maybe the Ravens are a little bit better as their defense has gotten healthier, but even so, yeah, I remember last year talking with you and being like, the Bengals are going to break leagues. Like, championships could be decided by whoever has the most Bengals. And I remember the year before that being like, Joe Flacco, Cleveland Browns, league winners. And like, feels like deja vu squared or cubed.
Yeah, it's the same story all over again. It's a perfect storm for fantasy because the defense is just so generous. That Chicago-Cincinnati game was just unbelievable for us for fantasy. You mentioned the other Bengals. T. Higgins is now averaging 19 points per game alongside in Joe Flacco games. Jamar Chase is going to challenge for the wide receiver 1 overall. We're going to talk about Chase Brown in a second. But, yeah, Flacco, it's awesome. We also had Logan Wilson, the linebacker, traded to Dallas today. So, like, one of, like, their stalwart like defensive players is now a Dallas Cowboy. So that defense is going to continue being generous. I'm right there when it comes to Joe Flacco. Very quick, briefly here, Jaxson Dart or Justin Herbert, who's the current leader for 2026 Exodia QB?
Oh man, that's tough. I know you asked for it to be quick.
Is it whoever is going to have a lower ADP?
For 2026 quarter?
Yeah.
Oh. I think it's Jaxson Dart, regardless of the price. Like you bring Malik Neighbors into the picture, you bring a more competent wide receiver too. You draft a offensive lineman top 5. The dude right now ranks top 4 in fantasy points per dropback, top 4 in fantasy points per start. Where the only other quarterbacks in that mix are Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts. So, dude, he is already elite from a fantasy perspective. And, I had this tweet where, I talked about delusional Jacksonville fans like, oh, it's just these drop passes, but Lawrence is playing at a high level. Like, that's how I feel about Dart. It's like he's like really accurate throws, and they're just being dropped by Darius Slayton, or like questionable OPI on Darius Slayton. So yeah, check out that tweet. I think it's gonna be him. I will say, Justin Herbert's gonna be very much in the mix right now. He leads all quarterbacks in rushing yards. Who could have seen that coming? We did, Theo. He ranked second in
you've been all over this. I think you've been like wishing for this for years now. You've always talked about how athletically he's very comparable to Josh Allen. You've made a point of saying that for like 3 straight years.
It's also Greg Olsen though.
It's awesome.
And so he leads in rushing yards. He ranks second in passing yards, and he's done this with his star left tackle went down, his star right tackle went down, and Mekhi Becton's played 2 full games all year. In an alternate dimension, and throw a Marion Hampton into the mix if he's healthy too. In an alternate dimension, this guy's leading the MVP race. This guy's a top 5 fantasy quarterback. So they're just both players I want to be buying on. But I have a Post-it note for myself on my desk that reads Jaxson Dart 2026 Exodia quarterback, no matter what. So we have a lot of people who subscribe to Fantasy Points just for that. Yeah, it's going to be Jaxson Dart. I don't care what the price is. That's my guy. He looks freaking incredible.
Yeah, Jaxson Dart really, really looks good. And I think, if we're talking about how quarterbacks continually take a big leap between year 1 and year 2, we'll factor that one in. Guy's going to get Malik Neighbors back early on in the season next year. So, yeah, going to get Cam Scatterbo back as well. So we're just rooting for Jaxson Dart.
He has the worst receiving core in all of football, Theo, and he's balling the F out. Wan'Dale Robinson had 2 games over 70 yards in his first 2 NFL seasons, and that's his wide receiver 1. I love it. It's one of those things where you just watch. Like, I'm not a tape bro, but you just watch the tape, and it's, dude. I think he's special.
All right, Scott, let's talk about it. We talked about Joe Burrow. Huge target volume for Chase Brown this past week, and sort of like an under-the-radar injury. Samaje Perine, who'd been trending up, he's now injured. Is this a push the chips in, let's chase Brown having a second half like he did in 2024?
Yeah, well, let's see. I mean, that'd be sick. You have to slot that into the range of outcomes. Yeah, Perine has an ankle injury. He's week to week. Chase Brown just had 30 XFP. It was the second most by any running back in a game this season, which is crazy. He had a 95% snap share. This is like back to where it was last year when Zach Moss went down and he was breaking leagues. But you also had the coach kind of throw him under the bus. He had 14 targets last week, and which is awesome, super valuable. But the coach criticized him for drops. I think I'm really excited to play him in DFS this week. Longer term, I don't know. Probably not. We'll see how long Samaje Perine's out.
Yeah, Bengals on a bye, so I think you get the opportunity to try to trade for a player during their bye, and the cost is way, way, way cheaper than it was this time last year when it was like everybody saying, go get Chase Brown. I don't know. I'm sort of intrigued by the situation. Again, we love the offense. Another player who's trending up big time, Derrick Henry. We saw last week Derrick Henry, another big rushing game, had 119 rushing yards. Lamar Jackson was lights out. Not a whole lot of passing yards, but completely carved up Miami. 4 passing touchdowns. Baltimore over the next 6 weeks gets the New York Jets. They get Minnesota this week in a really big one. And then 4 games against AFC North competition. Baltimore's sort of in the driver's seat here to win the AFC North. Your thoughts on trading for the big dog?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a buy low in the sense that we should expect way more production than we've gotten thus far. But I think a lot hinges on your estimation of the Ravens defense. I just brought that up regarding Joe Flacco. If you look at our schedule adjusted stuff, they're a bottom 3 defense in the league. They also dealt with some like brutal injuries and they've gotten a lot healthier. And so, yeah, I mean, if you think this is a bottom 7 defense, you should be going all in on Lamar Jackson and trying to buy low on Zay Flowers. If you think this is like just a merely average defense, you should still be trying to buy low on those guys, but also for sure buy low on Derrick Henry, who's just, he's a generational runner. He's one of the best pure runners in NFL history. He's also the most game script sensitive running back in fantasy football history. And so, I think a lot hinges on how awful to mediocre this defense is.
A brief update on our RJ Harvey over under bet. I set it at 13.5. I was very bullish on this.
Bring this up, Theo.
RJ Harvey gets there 16.6 points in week 9. We're keeping tabs on this. We're gonna try to get a couple more of these bets.
How many carries did he have, Theo?
Listen, only 2 carries. 2 carries.
Hey, listen, I can be obnoxious. I can be overly arrogant. I could be all of those things, but I will take my L's. Shout out to Theo. You nailed it. Yeah, it's weird. He's for someone who like didn't do anything as a pass catcher in college, is a really productive pass catcher for this Broncos backfield, which Sean Payton has always led the league in, or when he's been in the league, his backfield's ranked top 3 in receiving fantasy points per game. So I'll take the L. I'll grant the win to Theo. He was right. I was wrong.
Well, there we go. 3 straight games with RJ Harvey catching a touchdown pass. Let's pivot over to the wide receiver position. Drake London, huge game. This was on the road in New England. Atlanta put a real scare into the Patriots. Michael Penix, 3 passing touchdowns. All of them go to Drake London. Drake London's really trending up here, Scott. Some very impressive production for him. This game was sick, though. I mean, he looked every bit the part of an alpha wide receiver. I believe this was 14 targets. Let me pull up his targets from this week.
Yeah, so this is another one I have to take the L on and grant you the win, potentially.
You have a lot of Drake London, though. I'll say, like, you capitulated with Rich and I. You capitulated on drafts you did with just the 2 of us. So you ended up with a lot of Drake London, but it was always like sort of begrudgingly you'd take him. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what's real and what's meme, honestly. I don't even remember what my actual take is on Drake London, but like the meme I was putting out on Twitter is like, he's a fake alpha. He can't do well when Darnell Mooney's healthy. He can't do well on the road. And so of course he had a big game. I got a lot of tweets like, post the meme and so like in my defense, since the start of last season, this was just London's second 100-yard game with a fully healthy Mooney. And in the first of those 2 games, Mooney outproduced him. Not only that, that was his first game this year where he cleared 55 receiving yards on the road. It was his first time in 3 years he hit 20 fantasy points on the road. And so it's like, I'm just highlighting that, like, this is weird. This is not good. This is like alpha wide receiver 1s and like valuable fantasy assets don't have numbers like this. But I mean, he went nuclear. And like, So this whole time I'm talking about this, it was never like Drake London definitely sucks. It's like, it's really weird. The Falcons don't just feature him as the alpha maybe he deserves to be. And so what did we have last week? 9 catches, 14 targets, 118 yards, 3 touchdowns, nearly 40 fantasy points. Darnell Mooney, by the way, ranks dead last of all wide receivers in ass. Maybe he's hurt. Maybe he's just not as good. But yeah, and so it's like, it was always, and like, I mean, Matt Harmon, who's a GOAT at wide receiver evaluation, has always talked about this, as it's just like, yeah, the Falcons offense is always so much better when they force feed Drake London the ball. It's weird they don't do that. Oh, they finally did it, and good things happen. Let's hope it sticks. Let's hope it sticks. So yeah, we for those who've been listening to this podcast, it's been like a roller coaster ride where it's just like, all right, yeah, he can't be a top 5 fantasy wide receiver, but maybe he could be a high end wide receiver too. And it's like, oh well, yeah, maybe he's just a bust. I don't know and it's like, no. This is all it takes is give him the volume he deserves, and he could for sure be a league wrecker.
Yeah, and it's the Zach Robinson offense, and he's in the Cooper Kupp role that we sort of like wanted in the preseason. And it's also the lack of wide receiver target competition. Only one Atlanta Falcons wideout had a catch besides Drake London, and that was Darnell Mooney. So really, it's a highly consolidated offense where it's going to be a ton of London, a ton of Bijan Robinson, a good deal of Kyle Pitts, who I think is also trending up for the rest of the season, and then some Tyler Algier mixed in. It's pretty predictable offense, and I think it's London. And when you look at the schedule, Week 10 against the Colts, that game is over in Germany. So those Europe games can be low scoring. They can also be wild. Let's hope that we get good game flow for that one for all the people on the West Coast who wake up to watch it at like 6 in the morning. But then you've got Week 11 and Week 12, back-to-back indoor games. Carolina comes into Atlanta, and then New Orleans on the road. Then they have Seattle in Week 14, also in Atlanta. And then the game that everybody sort of circled, a lot of the DFS people circled all year long, Week 17 Fantasy Championship Week, is the Rams in Atlanta. Drake London could put up a big scoring number, so we're really rooting for Drake London teams to sort of get there. Let's talk about those Indianapolis Colts, though, that the Atlanta Falcons are playing this week. We finally saw a game where the offensive line didn't hold up. Daniel Jones played poorly, three interceptions. Jonathan Taylor came down to earth. Christian McCaffrey now like a 1.5 ahead of him in the race for the RB1 overall in the points per game. But you did have some positivity at the end of the game. It's 27-10 Pittsburgh with like 7 minutes to go. We saw the hurry up, like the 2-minute offense, and we saw big games from Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman. Let's talk about Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce, today we saw Adonai Mitchell traded away. Alec Pierce has been playing at a pretty high level. He's got more double-digit scoring weeks than he does single-digit scoring weeks. Your thoughts on Pierce?
Yeah, he's been a tremendous surprise to me. So we wrote him up in the Everything Report. He was a major target for us in DFS last week because he had a great schematic matchup. But not only that, we look back over his last 2 or 3 weeks. He had over 100 more air yards than any other wide receiver. And then just on his own team, it was like, okay, Pittman had more targets, but he had 7 more than Warren, and then no one else had more than 2. And it's like, oh, maybe Alec Pierce is becoming not just a deep threat only, but like more of a complete receiver. And then, 13 targets, 6 catches, 115 receiving yards. And this, you've seen it on Twitter where it's like, Alec Pierce is going to get a ton of money this offseason where he's a free agent. Like, teams are going to look at him like who they wanted Gabe Davis to be, and he is going to get an insane amount of money. Also, you look at his production, like for a deep threat, you should expect more volatility, especially on a run first offense. But he's had over 65 receiving yards in 5 of 7 games this year. But I didn't even write about Michael Pittman, who you brought up as like, no. Like, do not sleep on Michael Pittman.
Michael Pittman's going to be he's going to be a wide receiver 1 this year, and it's like it's a big like life lesson in anybody who sold. And I didn't sell him low. I had a team that needed a running back. I traded him for J.K. Dobbins on a dynasty team. That team's still doing well, but if I could undo that trade, I'd do it, and I'd send J.K. Dobbins plus to get Michael Pittman back. Last year, Michael Pittman played injured, played through it. We saw Josh Downs take that big step forward. Then this past offseason, Michael Pittman got healthier. And Scott, it's 3 straight weeks now with 20-plus points for Pittman. He's had at least 9 targets in 3 straight weeks. The numbers are fantastic. Against Pittsburgh here, 9 catches for a season-high 115 receiving yards. So he's averaging 16.2 points per game on the season. You got to feel really good about Pittman for the rest of the year.
Yeah. You look at the last 3 weeks, 9, 9, 12 targets. By DraftKings fantasy points per game, 20.8, 23.5, 23.5. And so like 4 weeks ago, I was kind of critical of him. I was like, he's Cortland Sutton 2.0, doesn't have a ceiling, but the floor is really nice. And then you said to me before the show started, you were like, Pittman might be a wide receiver 1. I was like, nah. And then I looked at the numbers again. You made your pitch, and I was like, you know what? He really might be. He really might be.
Yeah, we'd love to see more in terms of the yardage, but again, people that drafted him don't care if he's like wide receiver 15 or wide receiver 12. It's a huge ADP win. You were getting Michael Pittman close to like double-digit rounds in some of these drafts. One player who actually had tied for a season high in targets, we saw Nico Collins back. Your thoughts on Nico Collins this past week against Denver? We're just not getting these spike weeks from Nico that we're accustomed to. We've seen 2 straight seasons where he's been like 17 points per game in 2023 and 2024. He's down to 13 points per game flat. How should you be valuing him rest of the season? Where's your enthusiasm level for Nico?
Yeah, I really don't know what's going on. I thought, so Ryan took this blurb in the Everything Report. I thought he had an interesting angle where, he's getting wide receiver 1 volume, wide receiver 1 production when CJ Stroud has time to throw. When he doesn't, he's basically a wide receiver 3. You saw, 21 targets over his last 2 games. That's great. But then again, you look at his numbers this year, if you exclude just like 1 catch, and it's a catch that like stands out in my mind because I remember debating with Brett whether it should have been a busted coverage or a +3 ass play. And +3 ass just means like the highest score, separation score you could get on a play. And if you just took that 1 out, then he hasn't exceeded 16 fantasy points once this year. He's exceeded 14.5 only once this year. That's like what a Rashid Shaheed does with Tyler Shuck, right? That's not what a wide receiver 1 does. Because otherwise you look at Nico Collins 2023 to 2024, I think he led all players in yards per route run, first downs per route run, targets per route run. And so this is really one of the chief things of the offseason that doesn't make any sense to me. And so I've debated in group chats. I think the play caller stinks. I think everyone in my group chats agrees with that. I think CJ Stroud stinks. I think maybe he pre-snap can't read defenses. I think it has to be like, the ungodly pressure rates he's seeing has to be on him at some level. But maybe the offensive line is really that bad. I don't know. That's been a debate. And I don't know. I just know I think Nico Collins is insanely talented and like it's borderline disgusting, like what he's doing. We have angry subscribers who have like DM'd me. It's like, why do I have Nico Collins on my team? And I'm like, I have no idea what's going on here.
Yeah, it's going to be a big correction for Nico Collins, I think, in dynasty circles. It's just not happening. We've been waiting for that big step forward, and I think we need to kind of resign ourselves that the best fantasy seasons from Nico Collins might have been the previous 2. Nick Caley is awful. CJ Stroud, terrible. It's sort of a waste of a big, talented alpha wide receiver. But hey, Scott, maybe he ends up being an ADP winner like Michael Pittman was this year. There'll be too much of a correction for Nico. Always sort of goes full circle in fantasy. Another player who looked really, really good this past week, and I think we need to do a correction rest of season, was Colston Loveland's big game a harbinger of things to come, or was this a flash in the pan? He's going against the Bengals. We can't rely on him being like a spike week tight end like this. Where are you at in your enthusiasm levels? Is this Colston Loveland's season for the rest of the year?
I don't think so. I do worry about this being like a psychological cognitive bias where maybe I have that with RJ Harvey, and that's why you got me on that bet. Is like if I'm convicted in a player and then he doesn't do badly, I just like write him off as dead. Maybe I did it with JSN as well, but yeah, I'm not bullish on Loveland, who is a player I was very bullish on heading into the season. The pro argument you could make here is he's seen an increase in targets every week from 3 to 4 to 5 to 7. He had a 30 burger nearly last week against any defense. That's impressive. But it did come in a game Cole Kmet left early with injury. It did come against the Bengals defense, which is one of the worst defenses ever against tight ends. This was the case last year. It's been even more the case this year. We saw the Steelers tight ends have like 140 yards and 4 touchdowns against them. And yeah, and so like I believe in Loveland's talent. I believe in Ben Johnson and his track record with tight ends. But I don't really believe in Caleb Williams, who's bottom 3 in accuracy and who has targeted tight ends at one of the lowest rates in the league over the last 2 years. And the reason why is I don't think he can progress through his reads, which was an issue in college. And tight ends are infrequently the first read, so he just doesn't get there. And so yeah, I'm bearish on pun unintentional Colston Loveland.
Yeah, and I think if we're sort of like trying to rank our rookie tight end scorers rest of the season, I'd still probably have Colston Loveland as like the 4th highest scoring tight end, which is maybe a positive with where we would have had him like 6 weeks ago when we were sort of getting enthusiastic about Mason Taylor. But it's a Tyler Warren, a Rondé Gadsden easily outscore him. Harold Fannon's going to outscore him. I do think Colston Loveland's going to give you a couple more spike weeks. He is a mismatch, and Ben Johnson will be able to find it. So there's going to be a couple of games here where he ends up with touchdown grabs. I think that's going to happen. It's just the weekly consistency. I think that's going to be difficult for us to predict. Another tight end, let's kind of close it out with this one. Dalton Kincaid. You talked about him in the Everything Report. We talked about Josh Allen sort of being a loser here. The two on the trade deadline, Josh Allen is absolutely a winner, definitely not a loser in regular football. But Dalton Kincaid really looks to be trending up. Had a season high, 22 PPR points. Season high actually was not a season high. The second most receiving yards he's had in a season. Now he's had 100 yards receiving in 2 out of his last 3 games. Your thoughts on Kincaid's role moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, the flip side to this is he's not a full-time player. You look at his route share and it's awful. What I wrote in the Everything Report is, yeah, so he's had 2 100-yard games over his last 3. Across his first 33 games, he never hit 90. He ranks top 3 in yards per route run. Only JSN, Puka Nacua rank higher. You look at that and it's like, oh yeah, what a great first-round pick by Buffalo. But he hasn't hit a 60% route share once this year. He's running a route on just half the team's dropbacks. He ranks 32nd among tight ends. And it's hard for me to get excited about a player who's just a part-time player in this offense, even if it is a Josh Allen receiver, even if it is an insanely efficient receiver. It's just a major detriment to be at 52% of the routes instead of 80%. You're losing out on 12 routes, which is, 12 more opportunities to catch a target to score fantasy points. And so, yeah, if this were to like randomly spike to 72% in any week, I would be like, Dalton Kincaid, make sure you're buying, trade for Dalton Kincaid. It's Dalton Kincaid season. But I don't think that's going to happen. And I don't think that's going to happen for all the reasons that Max Toscano writes about in Remember the Tight Ends. You can't just be a receiving tight end. Those days are long gone, unless you're Oronde Gadsden, the GOAT. You have to be a capable blocker, which Kincaid is not. And so you're going to see the split between Kmet and Kincaid.
Yeah, I think I'm a little more enthusiastic about him than you are. I think this role could be ramping up. Again, 100 yards in 2 out of his last 3 games played. And I think the offense is still evolving, still sort of figuring things out. There's some games coming up here I think we could see a little bit more Kincaid. So TBD on Kincaid.
I like your take. I want to bet you on this. I don't think you're wrong.
So let's do it. Let's do it.
It just sounds fun to me if we can bet on this.
Okay, so how are we going to gauge this one? Are we going to gauge this one as tight end finish on the season?
How about if he has another 80 plus yards over the next 3 weeks? I'll owe you.
We're gonna keep tabs on this one. Okay, so I'm gonna set it at 80.5 yards, and I'm gonna say he's gonna have another one of them. Let's go with the next 3 games. I like my chances here. I've got the soft Miami defense in week 10. I've got Tampa Bay in week 11 in Buffalo, and then the tricky one in Houston in week 12. But I'll take my chances here. Yes, this is gonna keep going. Another big yardage week from Dalton Kincaid. We'll keep track of this one. Scott, what do you have going on this week? What's the DFS marketplace? What's the game you're chasing this week?
Oh, geez. I don't know.
I mean, it's Rams 49ers.
I mean, that's a great one. Although Kyle Shanahan historically owns Sean McVay, so make sure you look into that. I think the game everyone's excited about is Buffalo, Miami, yeah, and then Rams, 49ers, maybe Commanders, Lions.
How about I'll give you the sneaky one.
Yeah,
it's Baltimore, Minnesota.
Yeah,
Baltimore, yeah, and
that's
those teams both need to win. That's the one. That's the one I'm going to be chasing.
JJ McCarthy is a big enigma among the film bros. I've seen people very divided going to war over JJ McCarthy.
Well, JJ McCarthy, we had 3 touchdowns this past week, but only like 143 passing yards. That needs to trend up a little bit. Baltimore's been sort of soft defensively, and now they got Lamar Jackson back. So I think that's a game to chase. So if you want to get our full DFS slate, all the DFS information, check out fantasypoints.com. Make sure you're tuning in to Scott. Scott, you guys are dropping that on Saturdays, or is that Fridays? Saturdays, I believe, right?
What are you talking about?
The DFS stream on our YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah. Outside the Box Saturdays, and then Johnny's show Sunday mornings.
There we go. Check out all of it over at Fantasy Points. Check out fantasypoints.com for all of our articles, all of our ratings, our rankings, weekly rankings, our dynasty rankings, all of our DFS content. You get my dynasty article, you get my waiver wire article, you get Scott's everything report, and the packages are all discounted now. Use the code Theo, get an additional 15% off. We're everywhere here at Fantasy Points. We're going to help you crush your leagues this season.